What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here of the Desai Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts, Norman Desai, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Desai Guys, Mr. Tad Desai. And Tad, super wild card weekend was pretty super. I mean, just to put it that way, like it was pretty fantastic. What'd you say?
It was funny because so I did like a Sunday marathon at my friend's place where we watched all the games. And then Cincinnati, Baltimore came, and we're like, well, all right. Well, that was a fun weekend. And they're like, oh, no, this is a game too. We're like, okay. And yeah, no, it was a great weekend. I mean, it lived up to the nickname. So, you know what? I'm excited. This is going to be a wild couple games here leading to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, if anything, it was actually bookended. Like wild card weekend was bookended by kind of two bad games because it's like the Niners game was a great blowout, which I was
good in the first half though. That was a good first half. Yeah, I'll take that.
But then second half, the Niners made some adjustments that they took over in the second half. Then we got three great games on Sunday. And then, unfortunately, on Monday night, the Buccaneers they pretty much looked like they did all regular season long. Not like the team that we saw the last couple of weeks of the regular season where it's like, okay, is playoff Tom sort of awaking from his slumber and he's going to go on one of his runs that everyone's going to be like, well, here's Tom Brady. So, I mean, that was the only other game that was a bit of a dud too. But yeah, Sunday was surprisingly, I know you in our predictions episode, you sort of had that we should take the over, or not the over, but you should take the odds with Buffalo with the plus 14, with the minus 14 or whatever. That ended up being a really close game.
Well, I thought you were going to give me a props with the Giants there, but okay, I'll take it.
We did both pick the Giants, though. We both had that one. So that was a great game.
Did you pick them too?
Yeah, I did. So I think the only prediction we got wrong was we had the Chargers over the Jaguars. But
to be fair, I think 99% of America got that one wrong.
Jeez. Yeah, one of the things I'm sort of disappointed with, Tad, is that we didn't consult our good friends at Bet Online to see what the odds were at halftime for the Jaguars to pull out that win. Because I know there's a lot of people that posted the I think there's one viral post that went on Twitter that some guy bet like $11 million or something like that the Chargers were going to win, and all he would have won was like $11,000, but he ended up losing that bet. So he lost $11 million.
That sucks.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that we should definitely think about this next time, especially with the divisional round coming up this weekend. If there's any blowouts, we need to find the odds of what the opposite would happen, because clearly the Jaguars did that. So I'm curious to see what the payout would have been if you paid an X amount of dollars, what your sort of payout would have been, because that was insanity. That game was insanity.
Weirdly, I was at a bar with a friend, and we were like surrounded by Jags fans in Dallas. And we're just like, what is going on here? We're just like, because we were both cheering for Los Angeles. So I almost said San Diego. Sorry, San Diego. But yeah, sorry. But it was so weird because, we were both, and my friend despises Trevor Lawrence. So he hated every minute of that. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, I took a little bit of enjoyment just from his hatred of that. But yeah, hey, as long as they don't go to the Super Bowl and I don't have to watch them, I'm happy with that. Speaking of odds, I wonder what their odds are to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, like I said, unfortunately, we didn't do this over the Super Wildcard weekend, but definitely you can consult our friends at Bet Online. Sounds trickier. Yeah, I know. With all the latest odds there coming up with the divisional round coming up this weekend, and obviously all other sports, because Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at Bet Online. And as your continued source for all sports wagering information, Bet Online features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, NHL, MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, esports, and even golf. They got you covered on all fronts there. So head to BetOnline today with your computer or mobile device, and you could join and receive a 50% of a welcome bonus on top of your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE. That's capital BLEAV. And you can receive, once again, a 50% of a welcome bonus by using our promo code BELIEVE. That's capital BLEAV. And you can receive your rewards. So BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Ted, you have those odds on the divisional weekend right now going on?
It's okay. Sorry, I thought I was looking up Jags Super
just
Bowl
the Jags,
odds, not
just
divisional.
The Jags, yeah, not all.
So to win the Super Bowl, the Jags are plus 3,300.
Interesting,
which is hilarious for a divisional round playoff team.
But you know what's not so crazy is that they're the top 4 seeds because the Jaguars won the division.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Well, I mean, Tad, we've already been talking about it all this entire intro here, but we definitely want to reflect now on what happened over the past wildcard weekend. Obviously, we sort of have been discussing the Jaguars and the Chargers. We're not going to cover that in today's episode because you're going to get a lot of great content from LAFB Network, which we'll plug towards the end of the episode because that's probably, I don't know, Tad, that might be the biggest storyline of the weekend, like just how epic of a collapse the Chargers had.
There were a ton. Picking for today's episode was hard.
There was a lot of great ones, but, you know, part of me wants to say that Chargers one's probably the biggest one. But, yeah, I mean, we're going to go through. Tad has a storyline that he wants to talk about. I have a storyline that I want to talk about over what happened over the Super Wild Card weekend. And, yeah, I mean, let's just get right into it, Tad. Just what was your biggest takeaway, or what's the storyline that you're thinking about the most after Super Wild Card weekend?
Okay, so this one was tough, and I'm not going to lie. I actually kind of regret picking this now because I picked it being like, oh, this is great because I was genuinely interested in it. But the problem is the second I started doing research, I'm like, Amur is going to shoot holes in everything I say. And he knows better than me when it comes to this. And I am so screwed. Like, why did I do this to myself? But you know what? Screw it. We're running with it. Look, man, I like the Niners. I'm cheering for the Niners. Bengals Niners is my dream Super Bowl matchup. You guys need to stick with Brock Purdy. I don't mean stick with him through the playoffs because I don't think you have much of a choice. But I'm telling you, stick with him from here on out. Brock Purdy has cemented himself as the 49ers starting quarterback. Now, Amir, before I go any further, let's discuss how we're going to do this. Would you like to interrupt me as I bring up facts, or do you just want me to do my whole rant and then you can just blow me away?
Let's do a little bit of back and forth here because I don't want to miss anything. So, like, I don't want to just have you give everything in case I miss anything. So we'll go point by point here and we'll sort of dissect it as we go along. This should be fun.
This is one of the times we should get that Staples buzzer. And like every time I say something that's false, you just hit the Staples buzzer. That'd be great. But okay, so let's just start off with Brock Purdy. Let's get the stats out of the way. 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 picks, and a rushing touchdown in 9 games played. That's his regular season stats. Add on 3 touchdowns, passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown in last weekend's game. And he's sitting at, if my math is correct, 18 touchdowns with just 4 turnovers. Not to mention one of those picks that he threw. So one of those 4 turnovers was when he was just tossed in the middle of the game against Kansas City. So that's kind of hard to ask of a, basically undrafted rookie of like, hey, we're going to throw you against one of the perennial Super Bowl contenders and hopefully you do well. And 1 pick, I'll take it. So here are the 2 reasons I really believe you guys should stick with Brock Purdy. Okay.
And really quick, before you get into your reasons too, there's another interception he threw. It was a crossing route with Jawan Jennings and it hit him straight in the numbers. It bounces off of him into the defender. So you can't put that on Brock Purdy. You put him right on the spot that he needed to be. So honestly, I'll say it's 2 interceptions there.
Okay. No, I know exactly what you mean. Cause honestly, like one of Max Duggan's, no, I'm still not over this. One of Max Duggan's picks in the national championship was absolutely his fault. One of the worst throws I've ever seen in my life. The one down the middle, I'm thinking the Fiesta Bowl. No. So both of Max Duggan's picks in the Fiesta Bowl were not his fault because exactly the same thing. It was a crossing route right down the middle, hit a receiver square in the chest, literally bounced off his chest. And everyone in the stands, all the Michigan fans I was surrounded by were like, yeah, no, that was the receiver should have caught that.
Not on the quarterback.
Yeah, no, that sucks for a quarterback. They need to find some way to fix that.
It's tough.
Yeah. Tough life being an NFL quarterback. But anyway, there are 2 things that are better than his stats to prove that he is a good, capable NFL starter. And that is culture and dependability. Which one do you want me to talk about first?
Just start with the first one. Let's go with culture.
Okay, let's go with culture. So, during my research, I found a couple very interesting quotes here. And granted, one in the article I read was taken way out of context. So I actually looked up the context and it was backtracking, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The first interesting quote I found was Deebo Samuel said, when asked what impressed him the most about Brock Purdy, he said in his first start, he called a timeout on his own, will. Like Shanahan didn't tell him to call it. He called it on himself and he goes, Kyle doesn't do it like that. Like it's either Kyle or no one. And Brock Purdy took it upon himself to call it. Now, the article I read said they're pretty sure that this was toward the end of the second quarter against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Brock Purdy's first start after taking over for Jimmy G, where he made a scramble, got close to first down. It was 3rd-and-1 towards the end of the second quarter. Brock Purdy stands up, immediately calls a timeout. And even Deebo Samuel was like, the balls on this kid.
Yeah.
And that is so cool. And also on top of that, guess how that drive ended? Do you remember how that drive ended?
It should have ended with a touchdown, I'm pretty sure.
27-yard touchdown pass from Brock Purdy. That is so cool. Like where you're just like, look, I know what I'm doing here. Trust me, I got this. So clearly he earned Deebo's respect there. And this was the quote that was super interesting. Trent Williams said that Brock Purdy was the elephant in the room during training camp. Now, this is the one that was taken slightly out of context because I looked it up. And he said his full quote is actually something more along the lines of, Brock Purdy was one of those guys, not saying he was the elephant in the room, but let's be honest, whenever someone says that, he was the elephant in the room. So he's clearly had this team all the way going back to training camp when Trent Williams made that quote. So it's one of those things where is he good enough to really be the next Tom Brady or whatever? Probably not. But if he has the teams bought in this much, there's clearly just some type of magic there. And this is what made this argument so tough, is because a lot of it is just, a lot of just looking at it. There's not a whole lot of stats to back this up, but it's just one of those things where you don't mess with the culture and you don't mess with the chemistry. So he is bought into this team because that you guys have 3 very capable starting quarterbacks now. One of them, you're worried about dependability. We'll get into that. One of them has taken you to the second round of the playoffs. The other one, there is, some concerns he thinks he's better than the team. Am I wrong here?
I mean, it's fair to say. Exactly how you illustrated that.
In case I was being too subtle, Trey Lance, dependability is an issue. Jimmy G thinks he's better than the team. Brock Purdy is the perfect balance between both.
Yeah, the big thing that you're sort of seeing with Brock Purdy is just sort of like this quiet bravado is probably the best way that I can sort of put it. It's just like, he's humble throughout most of it, but it's like there are a few moments where it's like after he throws a touchdown pass, he did the the ice in his veins thing. He did that once. He was like, celebrating a lot too. It's like, but then there's other times where he's just like, you know what? Yep, this was me. And then there's a lineman that's sort of congratulating him. There's one video of Mike McGlinchey being like, yep, you're the one who did it. He's patting him on the numbers.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, this is the thing. So it's like, but then you go to the post-game conference and he's just like, you know what? We did a really good job. It was a complete team effort.
You all the vanilla
answering all the ways that a quarterback should be answering. So it's like, you get that sort of good blend of like, this guy is like the humble brag. Like I said, the quiet bravado is the best way that I can sort of put it. And so it's like, that's the blend that you want from a starting quarterback. And it's clearly reflecting in his play where it's like, this team has gotten so far. They're on a 11-game winning streak right now. Like, I mean, they're the hottest team in the NFL right now. You could arguably
100%.
say that, right? So it's just like,
no, I don't even think it's arguable.
Yeah. And I mean, just like, he's absolutely leading this team when they need him the most. And it's like, yeah, it's definitely going to be a conversation what's going to happen with the future of the starting quarterback. But I want to let you finish with your second point before we sort of answer that question. So let's get into it real quick.
So let's get into more, the more practical stuff or the less anecdotal. That's the word I've been looking for. Anecdotal stuff of like, this is what I've been looking for. By the way, if you're a student and you're listening to this episode, Google anecdotal. If you turn in your definition, that's extra credit. But
anecdotal, bravado, humble.
Bravado.
I mean, there's a couple words there that we're teaching the kids out there.
I don't even know if they're going to be able to spell half of that. But I believe in you guys. You can do it. But here's the more practical argument for Brock Purdy as a starter, and that's dependability. Trey Lance, I was shocked at this. When they cut up to him in I don't know if it's the owner's box or whatever, but he was in a box for the game. How is he still on crutches? I'm not blaming Trey Lance personally. I'm not saying oh, he's a wimp. No, I'm not an idiot. I get that was a very severe injury, but the fact that he's still on crutches more than or close to 6 months after, Cat's making a guest appearance, by the way, for our listeners. That he's wait,
he's shocked too.
Crutches? He's yeah, whoa, hold on. What do you mean he's still on crutches? But it's just the fact that this injury is clearly, if not worse, worst case scenario is almost there by the mere fact that he's still almost on crutches. So that is concerning. The fact that, again, I went back into my research. He had a knee sprain his rookie year. He had, I totally forgot this was a thing, where his rookie year was pretty underwhelming, and I'm going to get into that in a bit. But he had an index or some type of finger injury. I don't remember which specific finger. But, okay, so he has those two injuries. Then he breaks his ankle or tears his ankle. What did he do again? He broke his ankle, right?
Yeah, it was an ankle fracture.
Yeah. Yep. I always forget because we initially called torn ACL on that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But so I'm not going to tag him with the injury prone, oh, he's never going to be consistent. I'm not going to give him that yet, but that concern is perfectly valid at this point. So you had that worry. You had the fact that he, even during his rookie year, he didn't look terrible. He just didn't look great either. 57% completion rate, 6 total touchdowns, and 2 picks. So, no, I'm not saying give up on Trey Lance yet. I'm not saying they should trade him. I've seen during my research, there was a lot of columns should we trade him? No, don't do that. Hold on to him, see what you got. But at the same time, you don't know, why throw in an unknown when you know now that you can win with Brock Purdy? He is more dependable than Trey Lance now. That is just an objective fact. So I think that you guys should stick with the guy that gets the team fired up, that, guys believe in. Again, I feel like I'm character assassinating Trey Lance here. Nothing against Trey Lance. It's just that Brock Purdy seems to have that magic formula that is there. And the last thing I want to bring up with this is, who are the 2 most successful quarterbacks that Kyle Shanahan has said, or God damn it, Kyle Shanahan has had in the last 5 or 6 years under his system? Not as a head coach, but just in his system in general.
Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan.
Exactly. Are either one of those guys all-time greats?
No.
No. So you don't need an all-time great to succeed in the system. And he turned Matt Ryan into the goddamn MVP. So that's the whole point of Brock Purdy's ceiling is only so high. Fine, maybe it is. But that's the beauty of Shanahan's system, is you don't need someone who's going to be one of the greatest ever. You just need someone who understands the system, who understands the culture of the team, and then can buy into everything and make everyone else around him buy in as well. This is why I'm so on board with this Brock Purdy train, is that he just has that it factor. I'm not saying he's the next Tom Brady of this is the next great 7th round steal. No, I don't think he's that. I think he will have a solid NFL career. I don't think he'll be anything Hall of Fame worthy. But honestly, I think that if you just have something that is proven to work, which at this point it is, you need to stick with it. Do not ruin a good thing. Don't overthink this. I know you guys invested a lot in Trey Lance. It's understandable, but do not just let past mistakes. And again, I'm not saying it's a mistake. I'm just saying, do not let the past dictate your future. You go with what's working in the present, especially in the NFL. So I am very much on board this Brock Purdy train. I think you guys need to stick with him. If he sucks next year, he sucks next year. That's why you hold on to Trey Lance, because if he sucks, great. You bench Purdy, you put in Lance. And if Purdy sucks, no one's going to be that mad at you. So it's one of those, it's a win-win situation, but if they play this wrong, it can really turn into, for lack of a better word, a clusterfuck. So just keep Purdy, start Purdy. If that doesn't work, then you had the first rounder that you always believed in the first place. So it's just one of those things where I just think you stick with the winning now. And if it collapses on you next season, fine. No one's going to judge you, but you cannot ruin this by creating quarterback controversy. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I don't care if you guys lose next weekend. I'm naming Brock Purdy as the day one starter today at 10:22 Central Time.
So there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because we definitely need to get into my storyline as well. But I do want to clear up a little bit here. Trey Lance is still on crutches, excuse me, because he just had another surgery, but it's not a major surgery. So he had his surgery to repair his fractured ankle, and then the second surgery he had is to remove some screws and to clean up some like loose ligaments and things like that. Okay. Everything is fine.
Like a cleanup surgery.
Exactly. So he's going to be perfectly fine to start the season. So it's not any sort of issues. Like everything that you laid out makes complete sense that he had some injuries. He hasn't had a lot of playing time. Obviously, that was the big knock on him coming out of North Dakota State, that he played the COVID year. I think he played one game. He played all of 2019. So he was like 3 years removed from playing like NFL action or any sort of football action, I should say. So it's like he's very, very raw as a prospect. But I mean, I think maybe that's just the big thing that Kyle Shanahan possibly still sees, is that, like you sort of laid out, that Brock Purdy, what we see now, I don't know if it's going to get much better. It's still really, really good because there's a clear reason as to why we're moving on in the playoffs and why he hasn't lost yet in the NFL, because what we see is really good, but we're not going to see anything that much better. Maybe a little bit, but not that much better. Whereas with Trey Lance, and, you know, Cap's clearly on board with this take here, but I think...
No, he's enraged by your take. That's why he's coming like, what did he just say?
Either way. So I think just with Trey Lance, I think it's just always just that upside where it's just like, he's got more of the deep ball ability. He's got the mobility. He can run the RPO, those sorts of things. So it's like, you still need to invest some time with him. And I think that's sort of the worry that a lot of Niner fans have. That's like, okay, if we go back to Lance, it's like, are we going to still see those growing pains as opposed to what we see with Brock Purdy, where it's like, we're ready to go right now. It's like, we could compete for the next handful of years and be ready to go. The only thing that worries me though, is that, and this is the real big test as they head into the divisional weekend, which is what we'll talk about a little later in the week here, is just, I don't think he's faced as tough an opponent as he's going to face in Dallas this coming weekend. Like he's played a lot of opponents. They've been all right. I think Seattle obviously is a tough opponent. It's a divisional opponent in a playoff game, but honestly, it's like towards the end of the season, Seattle was just not the same team that we're used to seeing. And so I don't think Brock Purdy has had that stiff a test. Playing against Dallas this weekend, this is a true test. If he can overcome Dallas and really look the same guy, then it's like a lot more believable that the Niners can sort of push all their chips in and be like, you know what? Brock Purdy's the guy and he's the future now. We need to figure something else out with Trey Lance. But it's just like, I think that's going to be a real test this coming weekend to see what sort of quarterback Brock Purdy is, because he's going to play a lot tougher defense. The offense that Dallas has is a little bit more explosive than some of the other offenses that they faced this entire season. So this is going to be the real, like, you know, benchmark as far as like, who is Brock Purdy in the NFL? Can he lead this NFL team in future years as well? And obviously the biggest test, which is the right now, can he take the 49ers to a Super Bowl?
So just to back up your point, and we're not going to dive into anything deeper here, and we're going to ignore the Kansas City game since he was thrown in the middle of that. So as a starter, these are the teams that Brock Purdy has faced. On never mind. On December 4th, it was Miami, Tampa Bay, Seattle, Washington, Vegas, Arizona, then Seattle again. So the second Seattle game was the playoff game.
Right. So, like I said, there are some good teams in there, like playing Miami, obviously. That was a little bit tougher. We didn't know what we were going to expect with Tampa Bay, but it's like, clearly, it's like we got those teams off guard. We were able to come away with victories. But like I said, I think Dallas is going to be the true test this coming weekend to see who really Brock Purdy is.
No, that's fair. But I mean, I'm telling you, man, when you get magic like this, you don't screw with it.
Yeah, he's going to remain the starter because that's the big storyline going around this weekend. Is just like, oh, Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy now.
No,
so like, do they make the switch?
No,
definitely not.
No,
I think he's definitely going to be available.
Of all the quarterbacks, of all the quarterbacks in that room, that is he's third stringer. Who's your backup now?
It's Josh Johnson.
Yeah, Josh Johnson's above the depth chart than Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't even want to be there, dude. Like, no, screw Jimmy Garoppolo. He shouldn't even get a Super Bowl ring. How about that?
No, I think once he's fully healthy, he will be the backup to Brock Purdy, but there's no way they're going to switch from Brock Purdy to Jimmy Garoppolo and all of a sudden start now. Because, I mean, exactly like I said, it's like he's riding high. The team is fully supportive of him. The coaching staff's obviously fully supportive of him as well. So it's like, yeah, this whole playoff ride is going to be Brock Purdy to see whether he can make it or whether he eventually breaks it. But so far, it's looking like he's totally making it. I mean, it's crazy to see. It's crazy to see.
No, it is crazy to see. But all right, enough 49ers talks. I feel like we could do this for a while. So, all right. So your hot take, or not, I guess not hot take because that was my original pitch. But all right, your biggest storyline moving forward is, I would do drum roll, but I have no rhythm.
Yeah, don't do that. So observation from this past Super Wild Card weekend here is just, will Cincinnati's offensive line prevent them from winning a Super Bowl? Because we saw this last year, Tad. That's like literally on the final play of the game. If Joe Burrow had a fraction of a second longer in Super Bowl 56, he could have hit Jamar Chase for a wide open touchdown. If not a touchdown, at least a field goal that would have tied the game. So, I mean, it's just like, now we're sort of seeing the same thing happening now in this playoff offseason too, because we saw the offseason where they went outside a bunch of guys. They drafted a couple of guys too. They totally rebuilt their whole offensive line. They had some issues. Unfortunately, Lyle Collins is done for the rest of the year with an injury. Jonah Williams against the Baltimore Ravens, he suffered a knee injury. It is later found out to be a dislocated knee. He is week to week now. They had Alex Cappa, one of their offensive linemen, miss the Baltimore Ravens game because he's dealing with the injury. He is also week to week. Cincinnati could be without 3 of their starting offensive linemen heading into the game with the Buffalo Bills. And the thing that worries me the most is that in that game against the Baltimore Ravens, the Ravens were able to generate 4 sacks, and they just pretty much limited Joe Burrow from doing anything that he really wanted to. Held him to 209 passing yards and only 1 passing touchdown. Like, this is not the same Joey B that we saw in last year where he was just, being able to air it out all of last season. So this is going to be very interesting because Baltimore is a good defense. They got a lot better once they acquired Roquan Smith from the Chicago Bears. But Buffalo is better on defense. That's the thing that sort of scares me. And specifically, Tad, before you sort of interrupt here, but just specifically, they're better at...
Whoa!
You trademark interrupt me all the time.
I didn't say anything.
You're about to.
I contain myself. For once in show history, I contain myself.
But specifically...
Continue with your incorrect rant.
So specifically, Baltimore is better at generating a pass rush compared to Baltimore. So they're better at generating pressure. They got a lot more sacks than Baltimore did. So this worries me that if Cincinnati is going to be without 3 of their starting offensive linemen potentially heading into this game against Buffalo on the road specifically, it's going to be cold. It's like you need to be able to run the football as well. So not only are you not going to be able to air it out with Joe Burrow, but the running game suffered against Baltimore too. Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine combined for 13 carries and 42 rushing yards against the Baltimore Ravens. Like, they had absolutely nothing on the ground. So, I mean, if you can't even establish a running attack against Buffalo, it's like, what sort of chance do you sustain against a very good Buffalo team? Because obviously they were very competitive with Miami. Miami is able to keep it close there, but I mean, ultimately they were pull it out there. They're obviously going to take what they sort of learned from that game against Miami, apply it to this game against Cincinnati. So if by some chance that Cincinnati is able to move on, they're probably going to have to play against Kansas City or Jacksonville, who also have a really good generating front pressure. Jacksonville with Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, some of those guys are going to get after the quarterback.
How dare you include Trayvon Walker in that?
He's been pretty good. I mean, I'm not going to lie. At flashes, he's been pretty good. I'm not saying he's going to be the greatest thing ever, but at times he's looked pretty good. Obviously, with Kansas City, you got Chris Jones, you got Frank Clark. Frank Clark, I think, is injured right now, but they got a lot of guys who can get after the quarterback too. So, I mean, this is going to be concerning that honestly, if they can't fix this, they're going to be exiting before they even get to the Super Bowl, let alone if they get to the Super Bowl. That's going to be a whole issue because if they have to come against, Dallas has a good defense. San Francisco clearly has a good defense. Philadelphia has a good defense. So it's like, how are they going to be able to compete and possibly lose out on another Super Bowl? That's the way that I'm sort of seeing here. So it's just like, this really worries me. And a thing that I thought they were going to fix in the offseason, unfortunately, just bad luck has been on their side. And it could be the thing that prevents them from even getting to the Super Bowl, or even if they get to one, losing 2 straight years.
No, I mean, I agree with you on this, that I think the criticism that, wow, Cincinnati didn't learn their lesson. No, they did learn their lesson. They invested almost I think like 50 to 80 million dollars in this
Close
offensive
to it. Yeah,
line.
something like that.
And they did learn their lesson. But like you said, unfortunately, it's just bad luck where, like, yeah, exactly. Half that offensive line went down with injury. Is Jonah Williams was the one that got hurt during the Ravens game, right?
Yeah, Jonah Williams is the one that got
Yeah,
bumped
no,
out.
I remember watching that. I was like, this is literally worst case scenario for you. Like that, like of all the position groups to go down, you cannot have another one of those guys go down. And like, yeah, I mean, what do you want them to do? Like have a starter as a backup? Like it's especially on the offensive line, that's just never gonna happen.
And I think the tough thing, Tad, is just that they have some good backups. They have Cordell Volson,
They
the
do,
rookie out
yeah.
of North Dakota State. They have Hakeem Adeniji, who's a good tackle, and they have
Hakeem
Jackson
who?
Hakeem Adeniji. They
Yeah, I'm
have
not trying
Jackson
that.
Carman out of Clemson too. But the problem is that they used Jackson Carman as a guard during his rookie year, and then now they have to shift him out to tackle because of all these injuries, and so he's sort of playing out of position. So the offensive line coach has been working with him, but it's just like still not enough to warrant that's like, yes, I could trust Carman on his own on the outside to protect Joe Burrow's blind side. I don't think that's the same thing. Same thing with the Adeniji at the right tackle position, and same thing with Cordell Volson on the inside. So it's just like that's the thing where it's like they have pretty good backups, but exactly like you said, it's just like they're not perennial Pro Bowlers, they're not all pros, whatever it is. So it's like, yeah, they can look good in spurts, but consistently to play all 4 quarters, that's where it's going to hurt you.
Okay, so here's my big. Well, okay, first off, with the whole like Bills defense is so good. I'm so sick of this narrative. The Bills defense is not that good. I'm not saying they're terrible, but they are so overrated. Okay, so let me read you their last couple games, including this last game against the Dolphins this past weekend during Wild Card. So they allowed 31 points to the Dolphins, led by Skylar Thompson. They allowed 10 points to the Rams, 7 points to the Titans. You're like, well, I mean, Tad, that's pretty good. No, that Rams team was led by, was that even Baker Mayfield at that point?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so fine. Baker Mayfield led Rams, 10 points. Congratulations. And then it was that Titans team was definitely led by Malik Willis. And Malik Willis, I will own this. I defended that guy through the draft process. Ooh, he is not looking good. I still hope his career works out, but whatever. And then so this was I believe the last game Tua played, last full game Tua played. 19 points to the Dolphins, 20 points to the Ravens. That was the Lamar Jackson led Ravens. 3 points to the Steelers. I'm pretty sure that's when Kenny Pickett got his second concussion of the year. And then 20 points to the Chiefs. 17 points to the Packers. So no, I'm not saying this defense is bad, but they are not this unbeatable juggernaut that we thought they were. The Bills are carrying this ridiculous persona of what we had, the image, and me included, the image we had of them going into the season. I don't know how they've still held on to this persona of like, this team is like really unbeatable. They're not allowed. There are a lot of holes there. There are a lot of holes, and no one's talking about it. It's driving
And
me
that's
nuts.
fair. That's fair. And I'm not
I
saying this
almost picked
defense
the
is
Bills
still
are
good.
beatable as my storyline.
And that's fair, but I'm not saying that the Bills are completely, unbeatable. I'm just saying that they're better at generating a pass rush and getting into the backfield compared to Baltimore is. So that's going to be worrisome.
Honestly,
if
I
you have
don't know
holes
if I
on your
agree with
offensive
that.
line.
I don't know if I agree with that. To be totally
Okay.
honest, I think it's about level. But okay, let's assume Baltimore is even better. My main point against you being, and no, I'm not biased because I picked the Bengals to win it all, is my main point against you is that, okay, let's assume worst case scenario that this offensive line sucks. The Bengals were a drive away from winning the Super Bowl with one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen. And in fact, I will argue if Zach Taylor for some reason wasn't moronic and had Joe Mixon in there on that final drive instead of Pirine, they probably would have won that game. Because if you go back and look at that, not final, but basically the final play of the Super Bowl where Joe Burrow kind of dumped it off to Pirine, if that was Joe Mixon would have made that catch. So that's the whole thing of like, they have a year to prepare for like, this is our biggest weakness. They have to know. Zach Taylor is a good enough coach to know that like, if these guys go down, we're facing a tough time. So they still made the Super Bowl against Aaron Donald, and they still almost won with a terrible offensive line. So does this make the path a ton harder? 100%. I will not, like, if they lose at any point in the next couple stages, I won't be shocked. And that'll probably be the reason is their offensive line. But I don't think this is the kiss of death for Cincinnati quite yet.
Fair. So, yeah.
Also, Joey Burrow, who the hell calls him Joey B?
I've heard it before, so I just thought I'd throw it
from
in there.
Who?
Mainly the media.
Cite your evidence, sir.
But yeah, I see it as a potential, reason as to why they're possibly going to exit before they get to the Super Bowl. If they get to the Super Bowl, then it's going to be the big reason. It's going to be the big reason. So, like I said, it's a storyline to watch as these playoffs continue. So yeah, we'll see exactly what's going to happen with Cincinnati, their offensive line, and just how they're going to handle Buffalo.
Now, I will say the point you brought up is I think they can make the Super Bowl. If they get to it, that's going to be concerning because that NFC pass rush, like of all the teams you named, this could be a repeat of the Rams Super Bowl where it's like, hey guys, we made it despite this crappy offensive line. Oh no, they're good. And it's just like, it's something like that. So that's when this becomes a really big concern to me. I'm not too worried about any of the AFC pass rush left in the league. They're good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying them are bad or overrated or anything. But I think they are, if you have good game planning, they can be handled. But once you get to the Super Bowl, that is going to take some like Bill Belichick type mastery to overcome.
Yeah, I do think the NFC currently right now has 3 of probably the best pass rushing teams compared to all the teams that are left there. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. But those are some of the storylines that me and Tad sort of identified as far as, after the wild card weekend, just sort of things to sort of keep track of as we continue in the playoffs and possibly into the offseason too, especially with all the Brock Purdy and San Francisco 49ers news. That's probably going to continue obviously into the offseason as well. Now, we sort of brought this up in the intro that one of the other big storylines was obviously the monumental collapse by the Los Angeles Chargers against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And
sorry, guys.
Yeah, it was tough to see. It was sort of amazing to see. It was like one of those things where it's like, I'm so horrified, but I can't turn away. One of those situations.
It was amazing. It really was amazing. Yeah. I still have some leftover like Colts, not jealousy, but Colts, what's the word? Just hatred from the Chargers Colts rivalry. And I was like, honestly, I don't hate watching this.
So we obviously probably wanted to cover that in today's episode, but we wanted to save it for all of our friends on the LAFB network. They probably got a lot of articles coming up, some videos as well. So yeah, make sure you're tuning into the LAFB network website where you can find all the great material there, as well as the LAFB network YouTube channel where they got a lot of coverage on the Los Angeles Chargers. They just fired Joe Lombardi, so they're going to be looking for an offensive coordinator. We're going to get an article up soon on the LAFB network website discussing potential candidates and who would be a good fit to pair up with Brandon Staley to see if they could sort of recoup their losses and sort of climb out of this hole that they sort of dug themselves in the offseason, see if they could jump back.
Also, real quick, I hate this narrative. Like, we're in a hole. Oh, we're so close to the playoffs. Shut up. Shut up. You guys are in the playoff contention every year. You have a great quarterback with a rocket arm, like whatever. But anyways, how can that rocket arm turn into Super Bowl MVP? Tune into LAFB Network to find out.
100%.
Otherwise, I'm going to rant for another 10 minutes.
That's 100% accurate. So yeah, make sure you tune into the website so you get all that great content with everything covered with the Chargers as well as the Rams. Because I mean, even though they're not the postseason, they definitely got to make some changes. There's all the news surrounding Sean McVay. All that's been cleared up. He's coming back. How they're going to fix things. Aaron Donald retired for like I think 8 minutes or whatever it was. So is that a story? It's like
that was so weird, dude. That was so weird.
All of that and a lot more as well. So tune into the website. And of course, you got to tune into us. And I mean, you see the ticker down below. You see all our social media handles down there. You can follow us on Twitter. You got my personal handle, I'm Desai23. You got Tad's at Tad Desai94. Got the show handle at the Desai Guys. And of course, we're on Instagram at the Desai Guys as well. Interact with us. We'd love to hear from you, especially during the playoffs that are going on. What was your favorite storylines from Super Wildcard Weekend? What are you looking forward to into the divisional round? Who are your picks for the Super Bowl? As of right now, both mine and Tad's Super Bowl picks are still alive. So we'll see what happens.
Still in it, baby.
So yeah, we'd love to hear what your Super Bowl picks are. And of course, even though it's the offseason, there's still lots of great topics that we could discuss with fantasy football as well, whether it comes to free agency, whether it comes to the draft, when it comes to like just anything and everything. We'd love to hear from you. So yeah, make sure you interact with us on all our social media handles. And I think the biggest thing too, subscribe wherever it's to your podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, which we already plugged for LAFB Network. Hit that subscribe button. Always be up to date with everything that's happening with us as well as LAFB Network, and subscribe wherever it's to your podcast, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You listen right on the LAFB Network website as well. Always be up to date with everything that's happening with our podcast as well. So, I mean, guys, everything is great is going on. We're in the middle of the postseason. There's a lot of great content. We want to make sure that you're seeing it all. So, yeah, subscribe to our various channels. Make sure you interact with us on social media. And, guys, to everybody who's already doing that, we can't thank you enough.
And guys, like Amir said, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching if you are. And keep tuning in because like I know we keep teasing this. I promise it's coming up very, very soon. We have a major announcement coming with the show. We could not be more excited. We're planning it. We're trying our best, but we have some really cool things coming up in the off season. So if you're like, I don't know if I'm a fantasy football guy, that's okay because we are going to do some other things other than fantasy football in this off season. So keep tuning in. We're going to make the announcement. We might do a little tease, something we should talk about. But, we have a lot of exciting stuff in the future, not just the show, the network as a whole. So I'm really excited for all the things coming up. So as always, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for this. And hey, look, we'll put out a poll there. Should Brock Purdy be the starter? How concerned should the Bengals be about their offensive line? We want to interact with you guys as much as possible. So if you have ideas, feel free to hit us up at the ticker below. And guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. And please stay safe, everyone.